Let me welcome everyone. I am Ravi Gupta. I am CEO and founder of Elias Techno Media Private Limited. I can see Professor Prem Pratji. Thanks for joining, sir. Namaskar. I can see Aman Mittal. Thank you, Aman, for joining. Hi, Aman. Dr. Sunil Rai, thanks for joining, Vice Chancellor of UPES. Welcome, Dr. Sunil Rai ji. Namaskar. I can see Professor Vinod Kumarji, Vice Chancellor from JP University. Thanks for joining. And other speakers are still joining. So let us, while others are joining, I can see while Rajpal joining. Yeah. Welcome, Payal. Thanks for joining. And few other speakers are joining here right now. And while they start, let me, for the interest of all the audience, and a lot of audience are watching us live on Zoom here, and also on our social media channels on Facebook and YouTube. So there are hundreds of people who are watching us live. So let me, most of you are well-known faces in the education community, and many of you are gurus here. So we all know you well, but just for the interest of all the audience who are watching us, requesting each of you to please briefly introduce yourself while the other speakers are going to speak. So just a brief one line or two line introduction. Let me start with Payal herself. Payal.
Thank you, Ravi. Good afternoon, fellow panelists. My name is Payal Rajpal. I head the South Asia operations for Robotics International, and I'm also the founder of Hack the Crisis India. And I've been in the education and technology sector for almost a decade and a half. And it's wonderful to be here today amongst all the technology and education stalwarts.
Welcome, Payal, and thanks for joining. Requesting Professor Vinod Kumar to give a brief intro.
Very good afternoon to all of you. I am Vinod Kumar. Presently, I am working as Vice Chancellor of JP University of Information Technology, Wakna Himachal Pradesh. Earlier, I was with IIT Roorkee. I retired from there in the year 2016. I was professor of electrical engineering there, and I retired as deputy director. I have worked with Professor Prembrat ji. Good afternoon, sir. He was director at that time.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's
Professor.
my pleasure to join this discussion group.
Thank you. Same here.
Thank you, Professor Vinod Kumar, for joining us. Let me request Dr. Sunil Rai to please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, all fellow panelists, my seniors. I'm Dr. Sunil Rai, currently Vice Chancellor of UPES, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies at Dehradun. Prior to this, I was Vice Chancellor of MIT Arts, Design and Technology University, Pune. And prior to that, of course, Vice Chancellor of Kaziranga University in Jorhat, Assam. I had been director of several management schools, GI, Goa Institute of Management, SP Jain, and so on and so forth. And just before joining the academics, I was in the Indian Navy, retired as commander in '99. Thank you very much.
Great. Welcome, Dr. Sunil Rai, and thanks for joining. It is a pleasure to have you here. May I request Aman Mittal to please introduce yourself.
Hi, Ravi. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, fellow panelists. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Aman Mittal. I am the Additional Director in Lovely Professional University. I'm from the ownership team of the university, and I'm an engineer background with a management work as well. and I've been working in the university to ensure that we get the right admissions in the university, right protection of the branding of the university, and bringing the technology aspect of the in the university. So it's a great pleasure, and I'd love to hear everybody in this panel. Thank you.
Great, Aman. Thanks for joining. And we have Professor Prem Brat, who needs no introduction. But sir, I am also I also like studied at IIT Roorkee, and yeah, so मैं आपसे introduction की हिमाकत कर रहा हूँ, but just as a social media आप पे बहुत सारी audience है उनके लिए. So
Okay, I'm Prem Brat, and I've been teaching in IIT Delhi for last 52 years. Even now I'm an honorary professor and I teach there. I get research. I worked for 38 years full-time in IIT Delhi. I was officiating director in IIT Delhi. After that, I became the first director of IIT Roorkee. After that, I became the Vice Chancellor of UP Technical University, Lucknow, which is more of an affiliating university across the entire state. And from there, I joined MDI Gurgaon as a Professor Eminence for 2 years, and then Vice Chancellor in my current university, which then was known as ITM University. And for last 6 years plus, I am a Pro-Chancellor, Professor Eminence, and Chief Mentor there. It's a pleasure in participating in many events in which Mr. Ravi Gupta invites me. Thank you.
thanks, sir. It's an honor to have you here. May I request Dr. DNS Kumar to kindly introduce yourself? I think he was just visible. Yeah.
Hi, good evening to everybody. I am Dr. DNS Kumar, the Vice Chancellor at AMSL University, Gurugram. Basically, my area of interest of finance and technology, and I do some exercise in terms of valuation of company and forensic finance. I joined AMSL University as a Vice Chancellor in January 2020. Prior to that, I was there with Christ University for a decade, and few other organizations in Belgaum and Bangalore. And I do some cluster development consulting. Thank you so much.
Welcome, Dr. Kumar. Thanks for joining. It's a
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you. And a few other speakers are trying to join. Some have like technical issues, so they may join in the middle of the panel. So let me first introduce about this conference itself. This is the Higher and Technical Education Conclave, and this is focusing on the North Indian education institutions. And we at Digital Learning Magazine and Illustrated Media have been publishing this magazine called Digital Learning for last 15 years. This is India's first and Asia's first and the only magazine which has been focusing on ICT innovations in the classroom, both from higher education to school education to the preschools. And in these times of the COVID, the whole ICT based innovations have emerged as very, very important tools. And the topic of the session is role of technology and blended learning and way in the COVID-19 situation.
You are able to see me.
So
looking good.
Yeah. So
I am there now.
I will request each of the speakers to speak for around 4 to 5 minutes each in the beginning, and give your views on how has technology emerged as a very important way to deal with this situation, and how you are seeing the way forward. And we have also been joined by Dilip Puri. May I request you to please give a brief intro about yourself, a 2 lines intro, so that everyone in the audience knows about you. Dilip ji.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Dilip Puri, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Indian School of Hospitality in Gurgaon in the Delhi NCR region. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Welcome, Dilipji. So let me request from like the youngest panelist here, Payal Rajpal, who is like not running an educational institution, but I think yeah, she's working on the technology innovations. So how are you seeing the technology innovation playing out in these times of the COVID-19? Yeah.
Right. So, to begin with, I would like to enlighten everyone about the India's largest hackathon, which we concluded in April 2020. And the hackathon was based around solutions for COVID-19 and revival of economy post COVID. So these were the two main areas, and with we concluded this hackathon successfully with Ministry of IT and Electronics, METI Startup Hubs, MyGov, Digital India. What we witnessed during this is when India went into lockdown, the largest lockdown of the world in March 24, we launched this on the 22nd of March 2020 and concluded on the 5th of April. We had 15,000 participants, and what we witnessed is that school and college students innovated via machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotics, STEAM, the most revolutionary innovations of COVID-19. And these were based on, the current platform that they had studied, plus the enhanced future skills that they had. So, and these solutions have already been mobilized, not only in the country, but globally as well. We saw fantastic physical solutions like low-cost ventilators, hand sanitizer, aqua hand sanitizer, which was made by data scientists in Coimbatore by using salt seawater, and it was the cheapest sanitizer, invented so far. We also saw a lot of mental health and wellness mental apps where the ones in need were connected to the psychiatrist around that those areas. We also witnessed COVID-19 digital hospitals via artificial intelligence. So we already saw a spike in technology playing a phenomenal role, even just a week after the lockdown, where we further on went on, India as a country led the Global Hack, which was the first digital hackathon initiative for COVID-19. With 114 countries participating, India bagged 5 podium positions. And we at Hack the Crisis India and METI were leading 3 very strong tracks, which was health and wellness, one was the economy revival, and third was technology innovations. And even there, we saw that the Indian students and the Indian participants, without having access to, even things like microprocessors or drone elements, they put cans and cardboards together, put a microprocessor in it, and made a delivery drone out of it, where, India received far well recognition because of utilizing the things that were available, clubbing it with technology, and launching a product and winning prizes at the global platform. So yes, we've been in the robotics segment as Robotics International for the past 20 years. We launched Robotics India in 2018, and it's been absolutely remarkable to see the young talent in school, the students in higher education platform adapting it with their studies and creating some revolutionary products.
Sure. Payal, great to see that how students are taking interest in this hackathon, and they are making a mark globally. And we will come back to it because we are talking about education and students. So it's all interrelated. So let me request Professor Vinod Kumar to give your views on this technology innovations in these times of COVID-19. Please speak for around 3 to 4 minutes max, so that we have multiple rounds of interventions. Professor Kumar, yeah.
Very good afternoon. I will try to share my experience, what we did in JP University say, I take it that for any e-learning or online, we have basically three components. One is the information. Second becomes the conversion of information into knowledge. And then we have the ex experiments or practicals. What we did, say in case of information, we have, we try to have online lectures, that is delivery of the lectures, and using PPT, using video recording when a teacher is delivering lectures on the blackboard also, like in case of mathematics, etc. And what we observed that large number of students, they could connect to online lectures, but there were some issues, students who were at remote places or students from J&K, this is Himachal Pradesh, we have many students from J&K, there the bandwidth or internet problem was there, sometimes remote places, power was an issue. So what we did, in that case, we just sent the PPT or the PDF files to the students. This was mainly to pass on the information, mainly to pass on the, you can say, lecture material to the students. Then second component was when the interaction in a classroom, if it is not there, similar to the classroom, then what is the solution? What we did, our lecture classes were of a larger group, it may be 90 to 120, but then we made a smaller group. We already have, in engineering education, we already have tutorials, but we made tutorial sections to be smaller, maximum 15 to 20 students in a section. And teacher will interact those 15 to 20 students either through video chat or with the help of, you can say, mobile phone, etc., where he can explain what are the lecture material he has already passed on, and the basic concept he could discuss with 10-15 students. Again, in 80 to 90% students, video chat was there. Even he could give 4-5 MCQs, and on the screen itself, he has given one question. Immediately, the student will respond, and the students do not know what answer one student has given with respect to another student. Like in KBC, similar to that, the questions answers were then analyzed by the teacher. This was one thing. Then again, there was an issue, those who could not join through video lectures, then we put a slot that every teacher will declare minimum 1 to 2 hours in a week, that during that period he is available for discussion through mobile phone or through landline phone, so that very few students who could not participate through video lectures, they could interact with the teacher and they could discuss their problems with the teacher concerned. So this was quite successful. We could complete all the lecture, all the courses for all the 4 years, first year, second year, third year, fourth year. Then there was an issue of labs. In JP University, we have already installed virtual labs developed by various IITs under NPTEL program. And for the last 4 years, we are using those labs as in addition to the actual experiment we done physically in the labs. So the lab attendants, lab supervisors, all were conversant to that. I was involved in virtual lab when I was in IIT Roorkee. So part of the experiments we could do using the virtual labs, there were some simulation type of experiments, there were some trigger type of experiments. Again, the issue came with respect to the students, those who could not connect because of the internet. So what we did, we again prepared videos, a teacher or a lab supervisor, he did the experiment and a video recording was done. And that video recording of actual lab, so that student can feel this is my university, this was the lab where I used to go, he could have that feeling, and the lab in charge, he did that experiment, and sometimes when the teacher was also able to come to the university, he could also give the demonstration. Then the third aspect what we did, there are large number of students who were performing experiments on desktop, that is computer based, like software based. So what we did, we shared, like in a practical class, if there are 20 students, lab wise already there, 20 PCs were switched on, and every student was allowed to access to one PC remotely, that is PC sharing. You can say desktop sharing. With desktop sharing, the students from remote could do all the experiment as if they were doing in the lab itself. That was also a very good experience. Again, there were issues for the students, those who were connected, could not get connected because of some of the internet problem. And finally, the exam also we conducted by hiring a third party, that is a proctored exam. So we hired a third party, though we paid a good amount, but the final exam was proctored. It was artificial intelligence based, and student could also get a feeling that this new technology, how we can use it even for evaluation, because it's a learning institute where whatever technology we are using, we want to demonstrate to them, we want to get a feeling of that technology, so that whenever they go out, because final year students, they are about to join the organizations, so they get an exposure to, because it was all of a sudden, they get an exposure whether how to use WebEx, how to use Zoom, how to use G Suite, because different teachers, they use different platforms, and how quizzes were conducted. Yes.
So, sorry to interrupt. We will give you a limited time for each speaker.
Okay, okay. So this was the experience which I, you can say, I faced, and it was quite successful from that point of view. Thank you.
Sure. Excellent inputs, Professor Vidut Kumar, and a lot of innovations have happened at your university. Thanks for highlighting that. And just requesting that each of the panelists that I will be raising a signal like this, just in case we are exceeding the time, and requesting each of the panelists to speak to about 3 to 4 minutes each, and so that we can have multiple rounds of discussion and also take audience questions. So requesting Dr. Sunil Rai to give your experience, that how did your institution deal with this pandemic situation? What innovations you did?
So thank you very much. At UPS, we were very fortunate that the management here had invested in the requisite software. So we are on Blackboard Collaborate. It's a software which can take volume. So we could even get about all 12,000 students logged in at one point of time. The good thing also was that the faculty were used to conducting online classes. We have the online studio. And so therefore the scene was set. Of course, what took us some time to maybe a week to start getting fully on rail as far as this online delivery was concerned was basically about 2-3 issues. One was about the mindset of the faculty themselves, about can we do it online fully, everything and all that. The second one was about the parents and students, as was mentioned by my senior colleague, Professor Vinod Kumar, that there are problems of network and things like that. So second was that. And the third one was about the schedules, whether we can manage them or not. So, but then fortunately, all credits to the faculty and the practice that we had, we completed our entire delivery on schedule, 30th April. Entire syllabus done on schedule. 15th of May, all exams conducted in proctored mode through Metal software. So we had some problems because some of the students who couldn't take laptops home because it started immediately after the Holi holiday. While the Metal software runs well on the Microsoft, it has problems on Android. so they could not take it. So we said, allowed them to, we will allow you to come and take online exam after you are able to come to campus. Or of course, when you can get back. So we scheduled a second part. We did online internships. We have also done online examinations now completed for the entire university. So by and large, all these things had been a good experience. Just three things I would like to present here is that this is the topic was about blended learning, and we now feel that this online learning, blended learning has come to stay. One comment is that actually this online learning, blended learning is more efficient, more enhanced, because you are forced to use the tools because you are not there. So you use all the tools, you use the videos, you use simulations. So it is more efficient and more enhanced as far as students' experience is concerned. And we have been taking a survey. The second aspect is about that the classroom has come to your home. Now that the classroom has come to your home, we can use the whole world as a laboratory. And that's what we did for our design students, for other students of management, that wherever permitted, use this opportunity, unfortunately, which has come as a pandemic, to start practicing. So the attention now is that more and more of collaborative ways. Professor talked about virtual labs. Yes, we are doing, we have also recorded and we have been doing, but parallelly we are saying that can we use the life as a lab, whereas the classroom has become the laptop. And final piece that I would like to put here on the table is that we have found is this evaluations and assessment, doing it in online mode, can themselves be very efficiently used for continuous learning. I can take a test, how I perform in this test, I learn more and take another test, like what happens in Coursera, and then I improve myself. So the continuous evaluation actually keeps a record as to how I have done. This can also be used for developmental purposes and for peer level evaluations on Blackboard. So assessment can be used as learning. So three things I talked about. It has become more efficient and enhanced. You can use world as a lab, and finally assessment as learning.
Sure. Excellent inputs, Dr. Sunil Rai, and thanks for highlighting them. Requesting Dr. R.S. Bawa from Chandigarh University. Please share your experience of how did you deal with this pandemic situation.
Thank you so much. First of all, sorry for joining late because there was some, I think things were held up with my link. I have listened to the very illuminating ideas. Well, Chandigarh University, right from the beginning, has been using a kind of blended learning. So it was not a kind of sudden transition, although total transfer to online learning was not really planned or was not envisaged. So what we did actually, I think all my friends have already shared that the total syllabus, only 1/3 of the syllabus was left out of the last semester, which we carried out online. Almost 70% practicals were also over. So, but we are also using virtual labs. We were able to conduct proctored online tests for final year students, which was highly successful. So we conducted this test for about 7,000 outgoing students plus all the reappear students. And we also offer a summer semester in our university for those who are lagging behind. So summer semester classes were held online, and also their test has been held online through a proctored software. Again, it has been highly successful. We didn't find any glitches. As has been mentioned by my colleague from UPS, we have also acquired Blackboard as LMS. And this semester, we are going in for Blackboard. Now, I will just mention a couple of things, because as very rightly said, blended learning is going to be a norm now, instead of being something different or something new or something which is in isolation. What is required to my mind is first empowering and enabling the faculty. We have to, like, it's not only changing the mindset, it has to be real enabling them, empowering them. And accordingly, and followed by that, empowering and enabling the student. Enabling the student means that they should be able to look at other sources also. Whatever we give online, whatever material we can provide, that may not be sufficient. By the way, in our university, we already had introduced compulsory MOOCs as suggested by the UGC. Everybody had to do at least 8 credits per semester. They will have to do MOOCs. In fact, those were helpful in changing the mindset of the student already, that you will have to supplement what is being taught by the university. You'll have to supplement that with whatever you can get hold of. Some of the experimentation, we already were introducing the students to those kind of, I would say, lectures or those kind of simulations which are available already. There are some top universities of the world which make all these things available. We were using that. We are also creating virtual labs. So in all, I would say that what is required is that we make the student everything available on a regular basis. And for that, we will have to do 3 things. Technology, yes, is the backbone, but I think technology alone cannot work. I'm not going into details, but already mentioned that there'll be some problem with connectivity. There'll be some problems. Like I'm a comprehensive university. We cannot say that a BCom student will also have equally efficient laptop or mobiles everywhere. So you will have to innovate. Every teacher will have to innovate. So you will have to innovate with the technology, innovate with teaching learning process. And finally, you will have to be flexible. You'll have to be flexible with the choice. You will have to give a lot of choices to the student. You will have to give a lot of choices to the faculty. And what you need to do is that make things available to the student 24/7. Thank you so much.
Right. Dr. Bawa, you have talked about choices and flexibility. I think that's the key word in these situations. Let me request Dr. DNS Kumar from Ansal University to give your experience.
Okay. Well, good evening. Am I audible?
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
See, at Ansal University, we have a very good platform, blended platform that is coming from TCS ION. And what we did is in January and February, we got, upgraded ourselves in terms of technology also, and in terms of faculty training also. That's one. Number 2, which is the most significant aspect, which helped all the stakeholders in the process of education, is alumni and industry friends. During the course of this 3.5 to 4 months of online teaching, learning, and evaluation, we engaged for a greater learning of our students and also others, our alumni students and industry friends pitching in the various concepts and themes of the curriculum and higher education. And that was a unique feature for our students. Otherwise, it was not happening physically, inviting every time the industry friends and also the alumni. The second aspect is it also gave us an opportunity, to strengthen our collaborations that we have internationally. We have around 18 collaborations internationally, and we brought in most of the professors from these collaborating or collaborated universities to pitch in one or other modules, and which gave really an international exposure to our students. Now, coming to the next aspect of how it helped the blended learning with the technology as a main approach of learning process is students were able to learn at their pace and their convenience. In the offline mode, what is to happen in the class, we teach once and we leave the students there one. But in case of blended learning, we provided them a lot of online material. Not only they listen to the alumni, the industry friends, the collaborators, the professors, but they reused the material so that they can learn further if they have left out or they have not learned anywhere at their pace and convenience. Then disciplines like design, the hotel management, architecture, and all. Some of the practicals, some of the studios, our professors pitched in and they carried out the practicals in their respective home. And that was exhibited to our students. And in that process, not only our professors, but also we involved the professors and industrial executives sitting in their respective place. So 3 or 4 people come and they carry out the practicals. That also was a very exciting learning for our students. And at the same time, it truly became a learner-centric because students not only got restricted to syllabus because the material, enough material was available at their disposal. Whatever, online e-content that we have with a different platform, all that we had provided to our students. So students started identifying, can I go a little beyond the syllabus and make this as a learner-centric? The students started posing the questions to the professors, and truly the learning started not only between 9 and ended at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. Sometimes the learning used to go beyond 7 or 8 p.m. also. Then at the same time, one of the very important aspects now these days with some of the issues I interact with students is what I see is their attitudinal formation has happened better because they were at home their parents were there, and many of the parents are well educated, and they were able to showcase to the parents also how the learning is becoming exciting during this COVID-19 time also. Then at the same time, the scale up of learning, as I said earlier also, the scale up of learning did not get restricted to only 5 o'clock, but it became beyond that. And as a result of which, students also came forward with some of the research papers, and which we are able to publish also. This way, at Ansal University, we really brought a true blended learning process to our students and also to other stakeholders. Thank you so much.
Interesting perspective, and especially about that students doing research and focusing on and interacting with the parents also that we are learning. That's a very interesting angle you have given to it. And before we speak to Professor Prem Bharat, let me request Mr. Dilip Puri to give your perspective on the experiences in this situation of the pandemic.
Sure. Thank you, Ravi. It was interesting to listen to the other panelists because when you think of where we are today and the role technology is playing, there are 2 parts to it. One is, of course, availability of bandwidth in remote areas, availability of devices with students. But I think a more important part of this whole challenge is students' adaptability and changing mindsets towards online learning. When we transitioned, which was literally within 48 hours, we're a young new institution, so our campus, we had spent extensively in terms of capital in putting in technology, whether it's our own dedicated server spaces, bandwidth, virtual classrooms. And so when we were hiring our faculty, one of our key criteria was their adaptability and usage of technology, because for us, using technology in education was a given from the time we started and was not an outcome of COVID. What we managed to do was, like I heard one of the panelists say, we made the entire college a laboratory. Our students were like the guinea pigs, and we as the faculty were almost like the scientists. And we put the onus on them right at the beginning to say, you guys do the survey yourselves within yourselves to agree on what's the comfortable amount of screen time you want every day. How do you want your classes mixed up in terms of bringing in industry speakers or having regular campus classes online? And actually it was an outcome of that which allowed us within the first month to create a curriculum which was acceptable and enjoyable by students. The point is, as we all know, the attention span of young people keeps reducing. In an online environment, one of the things which is most difficult is to see, are the outcomes there with the students? So when you get them engaged more, I think it's an easier solution. Like many of the others, we were able to not only complete our early semesters, but we already started our new semesters way back in May, because many parents and students said, we don't want time off. We're locked down at home, so don't give us holidays. And so you were able to complete so much of your theoretical framework of your curriculums so that we can leave the practicals to when campuses do open, even if it is in September or October. I think the biggest learning for us has been that the pace of learning of each student is different. We recognize that even in the classroom. So obviously the biggest opportunity here is how can you convert your content in a way in which a significant part can be asynchronous content. When you were learning in campus, the professors spent probably half the time explaining the concept, doing the theory, all of that stuff, and probably left some time for discussion forums or for presentations or for group work. What we've done is we've taken our entire curriculums and we've already digitized them where they're digital versions, which you can think of as pre-module readings, are sent to the students ahead of their class. So they can learn at their own time, at their own pace, use peer-to-peer, check with their own colleagues. But when they come to class, which is this online class, you do not have to spend the same amount of time explaining the concepts. Rather, you use that time much more effectively as a discussion forum, as a presentation forum, as an evaluation forum. So I think the boon of COVID has been that the adaptation of technology, which has been forced upon us, I think what is brought about is a much more effective way for the student to consume the learning. I think all of us are talking about how we as institutions have used technology and are doing A, B, C, D, E. What we mustn't forget is that finally it is the student who has to decide whether this is working for me or not. And are we paying enough attention to that? By doing proctored exams, there's one way of trying to evaluate that. But I think what's more important is to see that do you have record attendance levels? Are students submitting projects on time? Are they engaging peer-to-peer at the back end on group discussions, on presentations? When you see those outcomes, I think you can easily see how this new model of online blended digital learning is not just going to be the norm, but imagine the beauty of this. It is producing students who will have online consumption of learning as a lifelong habit. When they become working professionals, they will still be consuming online, which pre-COVID was a nice thing to do and not a necessary thing to do. Today, it's become an imperative for students as well as institutions.
Great inputs, Dilipji. Thanks for that. And I think you mentioned that this is a digital opportunity which has got created. And before reaching out to Aman, let me reach out to Professor Prabji. Your experience, of dealing with this COVID-19 situation. How did your institution look at it?
Okay. Well, in fact, many of the things that my previous speakers have said, we have done that. Our experience had been, actually, we right from the inception when we became university in 2010, we were a 100% e-governed campus already. Almost every classroom has to necessarily, is fitted with PPT facilities. Some of the classrooms have been smart rooms or classrooms all through. We have compulsory, in for the past 10 years, compulsory 2 online quizzes in every course. It's compulsory LMS for last 10 years. And therefore, we had very little difficulty in switching over. That's why on 16th of March itself, before the lockdown was announced, we had switched over to 100% online teaching learning as per the original schedule in the face-to-face teaching. So we adopted exactly the same schedule as if it's happening, except that the students were in their homes. So our experience has been a mixed one. While the efficiency part is great, obviously technology adds to efficiency, but it would be wrong to think that conventional model of teaching learning process has become outdated, because to me the core of the teaching is the teacher, and no amount of technology can replace a teacher. That's why I'll focus on issues which have not been said so far, because then only it will add value. This is what we noticed, that while on a teacher is an additional stakeholder present, that the parents are present in his home, but then parents have a very highly mixed profile. If the parents are serious and are truly driven for the education of the child, then they would perhaps be monitoring him more effectively. But you can't take it for granted that every parent would be like that. And therefore, the issue that we found, that since we can't see, at least the platform that we were using on Microsoft Teams, you can't see every student present in a classroom setting. So I wouldn't know whether a person has logged in and then is not doing anything. He's not listening to me. He just logged into me. That's why we had almost 100% attendance. Now, if I have 100% attendance, which I never had in my face-to-face teaching my lifetime, I must suspect something. And therefore, this possible loophole that you can see, that they appear to be attending, but they're really not attending. Secondly, we found that when you're speaking from your home, I'm saying in a lighter vein, your performance as a teacher gets somehow affected when your spouse is listening to you. And therefore, perhaps you are not in your true form when you're speaking from home, and everyone doesn't have a big house to see that you have a separate studio like a place for you. But what I noticed from these surveys, that the efficiency of teaching learning process, particularly lecture learning, is great, but practical internship, practical project-based learning is somewhat hit. Although we do have virtual labs, we have spoken tutorial from IIT Bombay, virtual lab from IIT Delhi, but virtual are virtual, they can't be replacement of real. And therefore, I believe that the right model would be blended learning, where which has enormous opportunities. You can get the best of the speaker from anywhere in the globe. That's an opportunity. But it must be followed up by face-to-face interaction in the classroom, maybe in a small group, through project-based learning, through practical, through this, and only that model perhaps would work. And it has been now shown that even blended learning would provide you an additional about 20% cost advantage compared to the face-to-face learning. So it's possible for us, for the same resources, we can offer 20% additional reach, and that reach can be from any part of the globe. You can be global without actually having a permission from UGC, because anybody from anywhere can log into speak your lectures. We already were doing 20% credit transfer based on SWAYAM and Coursera. Most of the faculty members have attended Coursera courses in for certification program, and therefore the 20% perhaps is likely to become 40%. So I believe that future is definitely going to be not same as it was past. So about 40% will be online, but it's a combination of online and offline and face-to-face, which together, and it's called for flexibility. For example, we found that some of our students who are from rural areas, they came up when we did compulsory, when this final year examination online, which is AI proctored, like this metal, they said they don't have a connectivity at home, they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have laptop. So we have given them flexibility to appear in a face-to-face examination later on, or if they have not done well in the online examination, and they can want to improve, they have enough flexibility to appear in a face-to-face examination when the university opens up. So that kind of flexibility in policies is required. Otherwise, because there's no level playing field for all the students with different types of situation. But what I find is a great opportunity which this can help is that our master's and doctoral program, particularly executive development programs, MDPs, online is a great boon. Many of our practicing engineers are not able to log in for able to come to our 75% attendance full time, and we are very fussy about it, at least in the past. So our master's program can run very easily online. Our EDPs can run online. We're already doing our faculty selections through video conferencing even earlier, but now it's more extensively. For example, almost every day I'm involved in faculty selections online. So those are our PhD thesis has been, we have a foreign examiner, and all our doctoral theses have been sent in electronic form. And now the vivas are being held online. So those are the add-ons which indeed will be cost effective and would be very, very powerful. So to me, the missing dimension is the spirit of the teacher, because after all, it's not information and knowledge, it's the wisdom and the values of the teacher. So the physical presence of a teacher, the peer learning and the interaction amongst the group is a missing dimension, and that's why online is not likely to be a permanent solution. It's a combination of online and teacher-centric learning. But then the point it has given is that a mindset towards distance education has changed. Earlier, we used to think that distance education is distant from education. Now it's an integral part of education. So that change of mindset is a great thing. Thank you very much.
Excellent point about distance education. You rightly highlighted that earlier distance education was considered distant from education, but that has changed, and also highlighting the limitations of remote learning. So both points are very important. Let me request our panelist Aman Mittal to give your views on.
Good afternoon, everyone. I mean, when you're one of the last speakers, I mean, you all could say that whatever you wanted to say has already been said. But I think Lovely Professional University has been is the largest university of the country with some 32,000 students studying in its campus. So the responsibility of going online and ensuring we do it right was really high. And I think we were very successful in whatever we planned to execute. I mean, once the lockdown happened, because there was so much investment that has already been done on the IT infrastructure. I should not say we didn't have a problem. We definitely had problem, but the spirit of the team was so high that I can tell you my senior leadership team didn't sleep for 3 nights at all, and we were able to make the online system pretty much up for all of our students immediately. As we were talking, our online examination for all the students, not only the final year students, but all the 32,000 plus students have been completed successfully, and I think within a couple of weeks we should be out with their final result as well, because we want to see them with their degrees after so much of hard work, and pandemic should not stop them from getting their degree. So I think whatever all the speakers have said, we have, Ravi, you have put all the best universities here. So I think everybody has done one of the best things that's available presently. I think, but what we have done very differently, and I completely agree with Mr. Dilip Puri ji that everything is okay, but what the data is saying, that's very important. You should be able to look into the data, and you should be able to take the decision accordingly. So we have our own, like few of people mentioned about Blackboard and other interesting technology. We have our own inbuilt system, because we think that no Indian systems talk about those problems as well, which US systems don't talk about, like a low bandwidth issues and how to really look at the program in a very different viewpoint. Of course, that brings the best practices, but I think we have taken our own learning management system, and the idea is that we wanted to bring a lot of AI, artificial intelligence, data analytics into our platforms. I mean, people are learning great. Are they exactly attending classes great, but are they really learning or not? How many times are they logging in? How many times they're logging out? How much time of screen time they're actually doing? We throw a lot of quizzes, how they are, how much of effort they're putting in replying to these quizzes. So a lot of AI was to be built in, which we have built on our system. Secondly, a lot of people have been using about WhatsApp and things to communicate with the students. We said, no, we're not going to do that, because that, again, we will not have AI implemented on the WhatsApp. They don't allow it. So we created our own communication engine, which you call as LPU Live, which is very much similar to WhatsApp. The groups are created automatically. If you're known to my university, you're known to a particular program in this section, you get into that group automatically. The faculty gets enrolled into that group automatically, and they can start communicating. And we have a huge AI data on top of it, which gives more insight on how the class is doing, how the learning is happening. So I think my take would be that it's very important to look into the data during this online time. We never had access to so much of data that we have now, and we should be able to listen to that data. We have already started our online classes for the 2020 batch, and we're very looking forward for doing the offline classes as well. And I completely agree with Professor Premraj that blended is the word, not the online learning. And we have to plan that how we're going to blend this learning once the face-to-face classes are open. One interesting thing we have done is that we ask our faculty to be very innovative. That can we move few courses that we're teaching now in the next semester, which are impossible to be taught without this real experience of the laboratories. So we actually thought on that level as well and did that exercise. It's a huge exercise to be completed, but we did that. So as a larger, bigger university like LPU, I think there's a huge responsibility than just buying one software and asking the faculty members just to go online and start teaching. So there's a lot of responsibility on a bigger university to that, and I think we are doing that very rightly, and I look forward to contribute further on how the placements and internships are going to go forward. Thank you.
Sure. So I think we will move to the next round of questions with the panelists, and requesting each of us to be a bit more crisper and shorter for around 3 minutes each, although we have like a lot to say. About the digital opportunities, like we have this challenge, and everyone has talked about blended learning, and the COVID situation is like right now still going on, and so so let me request each of the panelists to talk about digital opportunities emerging in this higher education scenario. And yeah, as you Aman mentioned about remote learning, remote internship. So there are many of like those examples. So let me start with asking Payal Rajpal to give us her views on this topic. Payal, in 3 minutes. Payal, unmute yourself, please.
Apologies, I've been mute for a while. So, you know, adding on to how excellently, you know, India higher education system schools have adapted to blended learning already, hearing it from the, you know, industry stalwarts is reassuring for, you know, the world of robotics and future skills. So technology has the potential to achieve universal quality education and improve learning outcomes, we all know. However, this can only be when there is a proper digital infrastructure, which my fellow panelists also, you know, sort of touched upon. Thus, we feel that the first step should be towards creating a better structured digital infrastructure free from any digital device, and one that is no longer seen as a luxury. What we've been doing with technology, and we work with a lot of universities, colleges, and schools for robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning. What we've seen that the blended approach has already been improvised in a lot of these institutions. And what has happened as a result of this? So how do we sort of initiate it, and how do we execute it is via a lot of technology that we use, from inbuilt facial recognition to determine the grasping level of the students, augmented reality to create classroom engagement, artificial intelligence for intelligent adaptive learning engine, which includes AI strategies, illustrations, interactive stories, and at all level. We've seen that this has, you know, started to prepare the students for getting ready for future skills in a way where we stress upon the 3 E's, education, entrepreneurship, employability, and what that leads to is, you know, an entrepreneur. So we are looking at a 6-year-old also creating an entrepreneurship model, whereas a university student as well. So when we look at the actual handover from a campus to a corporate in the employability sector, it becomes that much more easier because we've already coached and mentored these students on automation and all the technology tools which are available. So we've seen that the students, not only in the urban areas, because we work very closely with the state governments, the rural areas and the tribal areas as well. And one of the main aims of Robotics India is to bridge the gap between urban and rural. We've seen more than a lot more fire that the rural kids have, but even the adaptability and learning of the rural kids has been a lot more faster. And our championships, it then becomes a platform for these students to not only integrate with the industry, but also showcase and display the skills, the product solutions that they've created using all the technology. And in areas where it's difficult for us to have an outreach, which are, you know, deep pocket villages, we have our alternate, you know, technology methodologies to have the student engaged with AI and robotics. And what we see at our championship platform is how this entire, you know, blended learning outcome in terms of product solutions, not only that help the current resilient you know, COVID-19 that we are facing, but also we see that a lot of the youth is already, you know, they have a clear mindset that if in case there is a next pandemic, if in case there is, you know, the world is going to die, there's going to be a zombie apocalypse, they may have a few solutions ready for the new normal or the new world to come in. So we've seen a fantastic adaptation of the digital technologies already in learning and showcased via products and solutions.
Sure. Excellent point about rural children. I think you mentioned about their adaptability and their enthusiasm is perhaps higher than the city children. Thanks for highlighting the point. And let me move to our other speakers on the opportunities being thrown by this pandemic situation. So, requesting Dr. DNS Kumar to talk about 3 minutes, please.
Yeah, well, Dr. Ravi, see, when I see opportunities, all of us know India is bestowed with demographic dividend. And currently we are sitting with 23% GRE. And Prime Minister of India would like to take it to 50%. And unfortunately, because of one or other reason, we are not able to push that number 23%. And at the same time, there is a blessing in disguise, with COVID-19, UGC opening up to universities and to the students that students can do dual degree at a time, one formal and one online or one, distance. So as a result of which, what I see is universities will have an opportunity not only to carry offline education in the future, but also online and distance, provided if they score a reasonable NAAC score, which is getting tied with that. At the same time, when we start using the collaborators, the alumni, industry friends, and all that, we have an opportunity to bring a disruption in the existing products and the programs that we have. That is number 2. Number 3, which I see sitting in Gurgaon, and as Professor Prem rightly mentioned about MDP and all, let me go a little ahead of that and mention, continuing education for existing maybe bureaucrats, maybe housewives, maybe community, maybe industrial friends or executive is a big opportunity, and which we had not encashed because we were focusing on offline mode of education. And with this technology and we getting into blended mode, that will be a big boom for us. And especially Ansal University, we being at Gurgaon with 20,000 plus corporates, and we are getting geared up ourselves for continuing education in a big way. So this is how I look at opportunities coming on our way. Thank you so much.
Great inputs to DNS. Thank you. You mentioned about the reforms which are happening in the education sector. UGC is taking initiatives. AICT is also taking initiatives. Thanks for highlighting that point. Let me request Dilip Puri to give your views on the opportunities being thrown up because of COVID-19. 3 minutes, please.
I'll just touch upon one aspect, which is the content of the curriculums themselves. And let's think of leveraging the modularity. Think of your curriculum as a game of Lego. And the way we are digitizing our content today, if I were to take a classic BBA program and just a module of organizational behavior content, you are able to digitize it with multiple purposes and purposes in mind. Dr. Kumar spoke about executive education and continuing learning. Today, what we're able to see is that by digitizing our own academic content,
I think we have lost connectivity here. By the time he's connected, let's move to Dr. Sunil Rai.
Yeah, so excellent points have already been covered. I am seeing 2 areas of opportunity, which I mentioned in my earlier talk, was one is about collaborations. Here is a huge opportunity because now curriculum delivery on campuses will become an issue because we don't know when this thing changes, and today it is Corona, tomorrow it may be something. So there has to be two kinds of collaborations. One is university to university collaborations. So let's say those students who are in this part of the world around and they are studying in any other university, they can always, when they have come in a break, they can come to our university and do labs. And similarly, our students who are, let us say, in Gurgaon can go to Ansals and then they can do the practicals there, whether it is design or fortunately that most of us have multi-faculty. So one is I'm seeing huge opportunity. This model is not only that we learn from best things from each other, but also it's more economic. So why should a student spend almost about 8 to 9 months in a location when this could be done possibly in 6 months? So one is that we could possibly dovetail an internship along with practical sessions. So somebody goes to Gurgaon, is doing a 4 days, or this week he does the internship in a particular company, and at the same time for the remaining practicals go to a sister university. So I am seeing such, already it's happening. The US universities are in touch with us saying that while they are going digital, can we take on their practicals for their students? So there are about 10 to 12 US universities and who through our partners have approached us, and we are in a very active stage of thinking. So one is a huge collaboration that I am seeing one opportunity. The other opportunity is that can we relook at this whole 4-year period, etc., for engineering. Now that there is a lot can be done through online, can we save this particular time? And then a more time can be spent, maybe the last full 1 year. As if you remember, my seniors who are present here, engineering used to be 5 years those days. Complete 6 months we used to do in the industry. So I'm seeing two areas of opportunity. Of course, all other things are mentioned. This is very efficient. There's a lot of sharing can happen. So collaboration, university to university, university to industry, and a university industry collaboration to save time for more practical experience is something which I am seeing should become the order of the day. And more of, can we use this time, because particularly we can ill afford, this movement of people, expenses on infrastructure. So can we conserve on that time, and by reducing that, one is economics, another is efficiency. So I am seeing these two as an opportunity: collaboration and rethink at the whole curriculum. What can be learned by student? What can be learned collaboratively by them? Let us not try and use that time, and use this more for practice-oriented learning.
Very interesting inputs, Sunil, and especially that point about collaboration between the US universities, which you are looking at doing, which highly interesting area. Let me request Dr. R.S. Bawa from Chandigarh University to.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In fact, I look at it as an opportunity in 2-3 areas. The first is, when we have offline classes on the campus, we have limited time, 7 hours, 8 hours. You cannot introduce many topics. We cannot introduce many areas and new technologies. In fact, in our university, we had the concept of content beyond syllabus. Which means every teacher will have to devote 10% lectures to content beyond syllabus, which are latest technologies, latest developments. Now that can be enforced, I think, much easier. And we have the opportunity of introducing all the latest technologies to the student, which may or may not be a part of the formal syllabus, but you can groom them, you can kind of expose them to make them more employable and more acceptable. The second thing is that we can take a lot of help, as rightly mentioned, by from foreign universities, and not only for students, but I would say for faculty also. And as I said earlier, I'll repeat, I very strongly believe in empowering and enabling both the faculty and the students. And this year, for example, we had 54 foreign faculty for faculty development program of our faculty from 38 universities and 17 countries. So that kind of thing can continue. And in fact, I think for the students also, we can do similar thing. What I very strongly believe is that we have to not only empower the students with knowledge, of the current knowledge, but also prepare them for de-learning, relearning, and also being very dynamic. And the third opportunity, which I believe, is that I think it's an opportunity to bring in industry in a big way. In fact, it's common thinking that the placements will not take place or industry will not come. I'm very happy to share that online recruitment has been going on, and more than 120 universities have already recruited from my campus. And they are also contributing in delivery of content to the students. So I think these three opportunities are very, very important, which my university is already encashing. And I very strongly believe that we can make a difference and take advantage of this situation. Thank you.
Very interesting perspective, Dr. Bawa. Thanks for highlighting that. And let me request Professor Prem Abrat to talk about the opportunities.
In fact, once again, many things that I should have said have been already said. And therefore, what I would like to add on are the opportunities which indeed have not been commented upon. And that's the opportunity for greater degree of internationalization for students as well as faculty. It's possible for us without getting the approval from UGC and other regulatory bodies to ask foreign students to take online courses from you, some selected courses. You can ask your students to take online courses and give them credit transfer opportunity that we can do. You can pick up the best available faculty in the globe to deliver a lecture on certain topic for which you have no in-house talent available. And therefore that kind of greater degree of globalization and internationalization of getting the best people available to deliver lecture, not only delivering lecture, leverage your best faculty member, the most talented faculty that you have, to reach to the rest of the world in the reverse way. It is not necessary that we only receive from them. We can ask our faculty member to deliver lectures which can be actually received by others in the country as well as beyond the country. So greater opportunity of that. Second important opportunity, which again, particularly in the private universities, is a missing dimension, is the focus on research. One of the limitations, and that's why the quality of research in the private universities is not a very highly respected. It depends upon the specific university where we may have systems in place. And one of the reason is that the dearth of truly talented, outstanding research-driven faculty to guide the research. Now, with the online possibilities, it's possible for you to tie up with the best faculty available, the most talented research guide available, and he can be involved in guiding research, and the interaction can be through online. For example, in fact, during the entire thing, as I mentioned that I've always been, I'm guiding research. Almost every day I spend 1.5 hours to 2 hours using Google Meets on my research scholars discussing topics. So a great boost can be done to boost the private university's research culture by involving the best talent available anywhere, because there is no limit in involving the best people to guide research. And similarly, involving industry to deliver lectures in an online mode. They may not be able to find time to come and deliver lecture to you. And therefore, great opportunity of collaborating, not only with the foreign countries, but collaborating within. For example, if suppose there is a certain course available in which I don't have the faculty available, but it's available, let's say in BL Munjal, my students take that course online. I give them credit transfer. Similarly, certain course that I can deliver is not available in BM Munjal. They can take and therefore this way we can economize even on faculty resources. So the overall quality cost of education brought down without reduction in quality of education. The other dimension opportunity that we have, most of us, at least as a private university created by State Haryana Assembly Act, I am mandated to have at least 25% students from Haryana, and many of them turn out to be from rural areas. And therefore, in order to reach these people, if I'm able to reach them beyond the classroom, so they can contact me through online for discussing their doubts. They may not come to the university during offline, and therefore it can be an opportunity for empowering people from rural areas who may not have the kind of technological resources available, or their cognitive skills, particularly in English language, may not be so good. So I can give extra time in focusing on relatively slow learners using the technology platform, which can be beyond the formal teaching learning classroom situation. And of course, the institutions which are located in a very far-flung rural areas, they have a great opportunity because such places will not be able to get some very outstanding person from within the country or outside to reach them because of the logistics involved. Now, and therefore those students were denied the opportunity to hear some of the role model teachers whose names they might have heard. With online classes, it's possible to, the best of the brains across the globe can reach those rural areas, and the students from those areas can also be greatly benefited. And therefore I can see that there are many opportunities which indeed have been untapped potential so far. The online mode of education can help us to tap those online untapped potential in addition to the existing blended learning mode. Thank you.
Excellent points, Professor Premwat. Thanks for highlighting the collaboration which are possible inside the country, in the university system, and the outside the country, of course, and also about the research part, which is a very important area which you highlighted. Thanks for that, and also the rural opportunity, which is a great point. Requesting Aman, sorry, like speaking after like everyone is speaking is spoken, it's very hard, and I apologize for putting you in this situation. But Aman, yeah.
No, I think I'll take a minute only, because I think everything has already been said very nicely. And I think just to summarize it, I think the biggest opportunity that COVID has given us is to collaborate. Collaborate with the universities, collaborate with the industries, collaborate with the people like us who are in this frame, or collaborate within the universities in India, and also with the society and the government. I think what the point like GR, in making the GR better, I think we never thought about an online education can play such an important role. I think that's again a collaborative way of increasing the GR. Collaboration with the university, maybe for guest lectures, maybe for doing the online, the practical thing. I think the biggest opportunity that COVID has given is collaboration. I mean, as we are talking, we have exchange students coming from French universities who study online program with us. I mean, they used to come in like 1 or 2 students. Now there's a group of 10 to 12 students who want to do an online program because they think that they're going to save the money as well, the time as well, and get this still Indian experience. So I think it's a good time to collaborate, and let's keep the collaboration going. That's all I could say as an opportunity.
Yes, thanks, Aman. And I think I had missed one of the speaker, Dilip Purije. Are you still here?
I'm back, but I don't know if everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can listen to you. So we cannot see you, but we can listen to you.
So I just wrap up the point I was making.
Yes.
What I was saying is that one of the great things happening for us today.
I think we have again lost him, and one of the biggest challenges our country still has is digital connectivity. And online learning and digital is still a challenge because of that. And let me we are almost at the conclusion of this session, and let me request Payal Rajpal, you want to give any concluding comments?
Sure. So thank you, Ravi. And this has again been very enlightening, engaging, and informative to hear from the various experts from the universities. For me to conclude, I would say that technology is an integral part of this new reality, and pending current educational practices, models, and processes. Also, the right technology to diagnose and treat learning gaps that have emerged during the crisis make a substantive difference. And I would always encourage life skills needed for the future, because in this ever-changing worldwide conditions, students need versatility and flexibility. Both are important to explore through this pandemic or future calamities. Considering the future, the most crucial skills that educational institutes should help build, which also the industry corporates are looking for, are the 3 C's, and creativity, communication, and collaboration. We've heard amazing, forwards and strengths of collaborations from my fellow panelists. And working collaboratively in teams across demographic lines will help strengthen the academia industry integration, which is a long-term futuristic win-win for us when we talk about employability or building or giving birth to entrepreneurs within our country. So yes, this would be my concluding remarks.
Sure. Requesting each of our panelists to please give your concluding remarks in a line or two. Max, thanks, Payal, for your remarks. Dr. Sunil, your concluding remarks, please.
I think we had an excellent panel, and thank you, Ravi, for arranging this. And I think the messages come out very clearly. It is all about collaborations. So I think two things which I take home from this is one is enhancements in your delivery, enhancements in your research, because all is now available online and you can collaborate. And so enhancement in terms of knowledge creation, dissemination, research. And the other E I would talk about is engagement in an entertaining mode, because with all this virtual reality, augmented reality, it's possible to have the kind of curriculum which will be delivered through these online platforms in a more engaging and entertaining way. So I think enhancements and engagements are the two major outcomes which are coming out from this blended learning. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Dr. DNS Kumar, your concluding remarks, please.
Okay, I have two things to mention. Study in India program by Prime Minister is going to get strengthened. And India is going to be a global educational player. These are the two things which certainly are going to get strengthened.
Well, I had requested you to give concluding remarks, but you have put some fire here. So I have to ask you that please elaborate on this statement of India being a global education.
You see, a large number of students used to go abroad, and since Indian higher educational institutions are getting ready and getting strengthened more in terms of blended learning with the collaborations and all that, many students are not going to see there's any other reason going abroad, and they will stay in India. And that is going to be a blessing in disguise for, coming from this COVID-19. At the same time, as many of us spoke in terms of collaboration, engaging the faculty from international platforms, industrial platforms and all that. So it's going to be a new transfer. It is going to be a real transformation to the Indian education.
Excellent inputs, Dr. DNS. Thanks for that. Professor Prem Bharat.
I think what we need to refocus on our funding priorities. Earlier, the major focus was on buildings, almost creating a 5-star buildings. I think that relevance has become almost outdated. Our major focus should be now on investing in bandwidths in IT, because today's university is not to be measured by acreage. We have 2,000 acres with this. It's about the bandwidth and the connectivity and seamless continuous availability of these. Is to me, availability of bandwidth and other things is almost like electricity in the conventional mode. So our major focus and investment should be there. And again, look at this technology not as a replacement of teachers, but evolve a mutually aligned components of teachers. That means technology, people, process, and policies. Unless we have alignment, if our policies are out of sync with these things, again, if regulators have a policy, again, rigid ratios of professor to associate professor or full-time, part-time, this and that, again, so policies, processes, people, and technology, all these 4 components must be in mutual alignment to deliver the best possible quality of experience that students have. And that's why it calls for a revisit of the ways we have been looking at education.
Great point, Professor Prem Bharat. Thank you for that. And requesting Aman to speak, please. concluding remarks.
I think the most concluding, for me, the conclusion remark for this panel discussion would be that, it's a most interesting time to reinvent education in India, both from the university perspective as well, from the regulatory perspective as well, as from the government perspective as well. I think let's use this time in the most appropriate way. As a university, let's collaborate. As a regulatory request, that please look into what Professor Prem Vrat mentioned, that don't just be too stringent about the associate professors ratios, but let's look at the real learning experience that universities are trying to give to the universities and to the government, that, okay, please start believing in the private sector more. I think this is like what has happened in the school education, where the private schools have taken over the education lamp forward. I think private universities can really do that going forward and create, as Dr. Kumar mentioned, that we could become the global education hub of the world. But for that, we need a lot of confidence from the government. And if this happens, we can really reinvent education. We are at the cusp of that. Thank you.
Great to see this spirit of the Indian education leaders, that they are ready to take on the world. Thanks, Aman, for highlighting that. Dr. R.S. Bawa, your concluding remarks of the session. I think we will
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think what I gather from him, my takeaway is that IT infrastructure and human capital are the two most important elements. But I have a word of caution. Let's not be carried away by this situation and get into virtuals and forget about the reality. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks for that caution of being real. And so if all of the panelists agree, we can conclude here. Is that okay? Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Aman Mittal, Dr. R.S. Bawa, Dr. Sunil Rai, Payal Rajpal, Professor Prem Vrat. Great panel, a lot of learning. In fact, I have learned a lot today, and actually I am going back inspired after this session by learning eminent people here on this panel. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.